Welcome to today's lunchtime roundtable for Teleport Connect Virtual. For people who've been here all day, we have had a ton of great sessions, which have been a replay of our conference from last year. And for our lunchtime roundtable, I'm excited to be met with Hunter and Eddie, and we're going to be covering some topics that we've learned, since the conference, and keep it lighthearted. And so, just going to kick things off. Hunter and Eddie, do you want to give an intro? Maybe starting with Hunter.
All right. Hi, I'm Hunter. I work at IBM in the office of the CISO, and I'm one of the architects. I handle mainly data warehousing, but like any security team, we all throw our hat in and solve problems when they pop up, and I tend to take some of the identity stuff too.
Great, Eddie.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Eddie Wassef. I'm Chief Architect at Vonage, which is part of Ericsson. My team is responsible for evolving our architecture, building our platform engineering discipline, and enabling DevOps and architecture through coding and tools. And so we've been using Teleport for quite a while. Helps us with our zero trust architecture, and that's pretty much it. Love being here.
Yeah, and actually saying that, both of you two, you spoke at our first and second conference, and so now you're here in 2024. So it's great to have you back again. Obviously means it's a good sign for what we're doing here at Teleport.
Yeah.
Do you want to, I think both your talks are being shared today. Do you want to get some takeaways that you got from attending the conference?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start first. So I'll say, this was the second one. The first one was really eye-opening to kind of see the breadth of customers and use cases that are being brought forward. And what I was really happy to see the second time is it wasn't as cold, because it was really cold the first time around. Let me put it that way. But the product has evolved by leaps and bounds, right? And it's something that you don't necessarily see much of today at enterprise level products. We had to build a lot of shims and a lot of add-ons in the very first years, where we built our own operators and stuff around the Kubernetes work, and that has all been effectively deprecated. And the product has evolved. It has a new policy engine. It has a lot more capabilities, which have allowed us to go active, and really make our product much more resilient and much more able to respond to some of the needs that we have this year.
It's great. It's always good to hear. I know sometimes people complain about how quickly we're doing release cycles, and so going deep on how to make upgrades also easier. But it sounds like probably having a active probably makes it a little easier for you to upgrade.
No, I'll tell you, I mean, having a very quick moving and quickly updating system is much better than having something that's stagnant that never gets fixed. So I will take the former.
Yeah. Yeah, always things that you don't upgrade become definitely a lot more fragile over time. Hunter, what about yourself? What were some takeaways you got?
I think for me, again, it's much warmer than the last one, which I'm not going to stress enough. Like, I almost froze giving my talk the first time, but no issues this time. I think for me, I found it really eye-opening just to see, some of the other attendees there at, some really big companies, really coming in and starting to not only talk about, security, but also the accessibility and usability of security. And this is where I've always felt Teleport really is, leaps and bounds. It's this idea that, you can be secure because you can take the computer, you can encase it in cement, and you can push it into the Chesapeake. And as long as you can have it running, it's technically secure, but that's not usable. And I really think, we're starting to see folks in the industry wise up to the fact that it's not just about being secure. People have to use it. People have to like it. People want to interact with the systems we're putting in front of them. And,
yeah, definitely really having a usable system. I mean, I think otherwise engineers find a way. We always say this, like, you're working with very smart people, and if you put something in their way, they don't like it, they'll always find a backdoor.
Right. And I think this, for me, is the big thing is, tooling vendors are starting to realize, even at the enterprise level, like, we don't want people to go through the back door. We want to make the front door as nice and appealing as possible. We want to have umbrellas for when you step out. We want to have, the things that like metal hedgehog with the bristles to wipe your shoes on. Like, we really want the front door to be appealing and inviting, because that means you can go after every other door, with impunity as a security team. And I think the industry is starting to pick up on that, and I'm really glad that they are.
Yeah, talking of things the industry are picking up, I actually asked the poll question this morning around like what are people interested in, and I think the number one thing was still zero trust. Which has been a concept that's been around for a while. People are always on like a zero trust journey. I just wondered if either of you can give an overview of sort of where you are deploying zero trust principles in your organization.
So
Sure, I could go ahead, Hunter.
Okay, well, I'll say, IBM's big. We have a bunch of groups. Some groups are there, some groups aren't there. Really, it's just a process of, dragging or convincing the slow adopters to pick it up. But, I'm pretty positive and, pretty bullish this year on, I'm thinking like we're, not just as an IBM, but like I think as an industry, this is really going to be the year for, zero trust at scale for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And what about yourself, Eddie?
I mean, I agree. I mean, the time has come where the world is not as nice as everybody thought it was. The internet's the Wild West. It's a dangerous place. There are CEOs in Congress every week talking about, whether it's AI spoofing people, whether it's, backdoors, things going, happening. Zero trust is always something that people have strived for. It's a lot easier said than done, because, like you had mentioned, Ben, developers are like water, right? If there's a crack in anything, they will find it and seep through. And so your zero trust architecture needs to be the path of least resistance somehow. Otherwise, they're going to find a way around it.
And I would go one step stronger, Eddie. Not only does it need to be the path of least resistance, it needs to be a value add to their day-to-day work.
Absolutely, yeah. And once you do that, you're really going forward with, bringing more value to your product, bringing more value to your developers, and securing the world that we're in. But all of these issues that we've heard, the spoofing that happened last week with the CTO that was spoofed with the AI bot, all of these things are because of cracks in the infrastructure. So companies are wising up. Zero trust is going to become a priority. It's going to be bad for a while because zero trust is not easy. But tools like Teleport are really going to help make that the path of least resistance.
Yeah, and we're known for giving identity to access for individuals. And in the last few years we've had machine ID for providing access to machines. So how are you thinking about sort of machine to machine security as part of this sort of zero trust initiative as well?
So for me, I'm really thinking if, people to machine, most folks get. I think that's, not super difficult to sell. UBTs, we're giving them out like candy. I think we have like 8 from reInvent last year. It was ridiculous. But for me, like machine to machine, I not only view that as a trust process to go and make the system more secure, but it's also, I think, a really good opportunity to sneak some compliance thing into there. Because the cool part is that now that there's some third entity involved in establishing trust between two parties, you can have that third entity do extra things you couldn't do previously. Like a good one is, has the server passed its security standard scans? When was the last time it checked in for patching? Add that information into your zero trust model. So then as that server starts to interact with the rest of your ecosystem, maybe like, hey, I'm not going to let you put customer data on a staging system if you haven't patched it in 6 months. Like that's, I think, where I'm really looking at zero trust giving, a ton of benefit. Because what it means is I can take compliance problems, which people don't want to do compliance, and turn them into just a different activity. People want to get access to customer data. People want to get access to our package repository. Well, I can say, sure, this is how you do it. And then just there's a couple of extra hurdles, which is the compliance versus saying, well, here's access to the package repository. Also, please do compliance for me at some point. Like that's where I think machine to machine, zero trust stuff is really powerful.
Mm-hmm. And what about yourself, Eddie? I know you run a huge fleet So probably more machines than humans in your organization. Probably
we
true.
do. And a long time ago we had DMZs and these kind of things where you wouldn't allow any kind of lateral movement between servers or machines. But now you're starting to have these, especially microservices or meshes or whatnot. Systems are talking to each other, and a lot of times when you secure something, you're securing the outer border, and you think that's enough. But there's a huge risk of lateral movement from a different breach path, right? And that can be some secured web endpoint or SSH endpoint on some unknown, unused server somewhere. And if they get in, then they can move laterally free and affect your production clusters. Even though you think you may have barbed wire around it, there's a way for that machine to get to it. So we use machine ID for any kind of machines that need to talk to each other because we know that we have that extra level of security, especially with Teleport specific implementation. It's ephemeral, right? So you get it, you request it, and we use a lot of it with our source code repos. So our build machines accessing our test clusters, and that is, you can't. There's no way to spoof it. You're now specifying which repo, what key, what certificate gets created, and what access it has for that particular amount of time. So we love it. Again, it's reduced the friction of being able to test on these environments from different areas while still disrupting any breach path that can come in laterally. So we're very excited for it. We're adding a lot of automation around it as well.
Nice. And so it kind of segues me into my next question. I know I kind of preceded the two big problems we're looking at. What's another big problem that you're looking to solve in 2024? This can be teleport or non-teleport related.
I really want to get, I would really like to get a handle on the LLM spam that's going to start coming. I think for me that's what I'm currently like really trying to just go through the motions, think through, talking with some team members.
And what does that look like for you, LLM spams, for people who are not familiar with maybe large language models?
The idea being, you have a large language model, which you can, ask it with a pretty simple interface, like, hey, write me 50,000 emails that would come from a CEO requesting gift cards be sent. They'll all look different. They're all going to have a different fingerprint. You can botnet a bunch of IoT devices to get cleanish IPs to do the mail routing and just keep pumping this stuff out as long as you have the GPUs to run, one of these large language models. So for me, it's one of these cases where when you look at situations like it's like a DDoS attack, essentially, but it's on people's brains. What's the WAF that you put in front of it? What's the, traffic route cleansing process you do to handle that? Because I think, the ultimate problem with any security system is that people ultimately have to interact with it. And this seems like a really good way to just have a flood attack on people. So for me, I'm trying to figure out, what can I do? What can we build? What can we bring in to go and help, lessen that impact?
Yeah, I think of note last year we saw lots of the push notification attacks that people would just spam them until someone gave in at 3 a.m. and then they suddenly got access to their account. And then I think we see the lateral movement. So yeah, all of these things are just to anchor into an organization. What about yourself, Eddie? What sort of a big topic you're trying to handle this year?
Well, I would say for us, the biggest topic that we're trying to figure out is the verification and the trust but verify step, right? And you can always go and satisfy an audit or an auditor's questions right now, but a lot of times you want to go back in time to a very specific window. You can do that, but it's very tedious, very time consuming. So we're excited about some of the new policy engines and stuff that was coming out. And the ability to go back and say, especially with how easy Teleport makes it to request escalated access and be able to get that and then revoke it very quickly, your state is very different than what it was in a point of time. So sometimes you'll get these questions like, what happened last Tuesday at 2:15 a.m.? Who had access to what? Right? And being able to kind of go back and if we can do that in minutes, right? That today takes several hours and sometimes several days. So that is just that's money in the bank as far as we're concerned.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good plug for Hunter's talk. If people haven't seen it, talking about preparing for the big day, about and I think also lighting your talk is like teleport isn't the catch-all. You need to catch other data as well. But I think
yeah, because again, like teleport, I think it's a very good access tool. But teleport's built a really good access tool. They haven't built a generalist Swiss Army knife.
yeah, and the verification and access requests is also kind of interesting. How did organizations really deploy like the principle of least privilege or zero standing privilege as well? I think we're seeing this, at least in our organization, it's kind of a win when you get removed from the production system. If you can like make other tooling in place as other checks that it's like less liability for yourself. And so, I think even our CTO is like, yeah, get me off this very secure like root password, because he's going to be the most easy target to obtain first. And so changing gear, but I think we covered lots of things. So like, what are you excited for coming up this year?
Taylor
It
Swift.
can always be doom and gloom. So what's like some exciting aspects that may be protecting you or helping you out?
I'm excited about Taylor Swift on Sunday. I hear she's gonna go watch some game or something, but yeah, I want to see. I'm a Swiftie, so
you're Swiftie. That's always good. I guess you're going for the 49ers, I'd guess, Eddie.
Well, you guys are going for the 49ers. I'm going for Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift,
whoever she's with. But Cowboys didn't make it, so I can't go with either. But no, really excited about really taking what we've built over the last few years and expanding that, and especially from a teleport perspective, we really want to start getting into a lot more side applications, I would say. So we do Kubernetes, we do applications, we do servers. We started on the databases mid last year, and we really want to expand that out. So we're really excited about that. CLI access for some of the the cloud providers as well. Integration with the Jira, we really want to pump that up. So now that we've kind of got our bearings, we're really excited to expand that out to the entire organization as well as our parent organization, hopefully in this year.
Great. And what about yourself, Hunter?
I think for me, I'm really liking the fact we're starting to see more and more of a trend in open source communities to start putting, let's say a more security first design approach and focus. I think as we start to look at a lot of the stuff that the Linux Foundation is doing through CNCF, a lot of changes that are getting merged into, really cool tools like Strimzy for, managing Kafka on Kubernetes, a lot of stuff in the open telemetry and open SDCF space. Like folks are starting to come to terms with the fact that well, hey, maybe we need to be sharing more with security because we want to actually be secure. Maybe as an industry, if someone can get hacked, that's a problem for everyone, not just, an opportunity for their competitors. And maybe we want to start, sharing IOCs, sharing logs in the common format, make things accessible and easy for the actual implementers to go and stitch everything together. I'm really starting to see that stuff pick up. Like for me, I think the biggest one was Elastic giving away their schema to Open Telemetry. So now Open Telemetry has a complete compatible, security logging ready schema that every application that speaks Open Telemetry can tap into and start dumping out. So the next time that somebody brings in a piece of open source software, or even certain pieces of proprietary software, it's like, oh, you speak Open Telemetry? All right, you're getting in the data warehouse, slapping access, application access in front of you, and here's SSH onto your server. And it's really clean and really fast. So for me, I think, it's the industry wake up and speed up when it comes to getting, the right security hooks in places. That, and the thing I'm always excited about is eBPF becoming more and more mainstream. But this is also because I used to do a lot of kernel level development for another job.
Yeah, there's definitely some very interesting eBPF observability tools out there. I know we have our enhanced session recording, which is eBPF based. Do either of you use it?
Yes. I
use
tell
session
people,
recording.
And so the eBPF one, it captures network events, file opens, and There's like a third thing I've forgotten.
Events file opens and true process invocation. So even if you try to do like a shell mask to obscure the command that you're running, which would work in the regular session recording, you're going to record the command that was executed at the kernel level tied back to the user session, which is really cool. I tell people that if they're using teleport and you don't have this feature on, you're using teleport wrong. It's that good. Everybody turn it on.
Yeah,
I'll have to make sure we turn it on. I mean, I know we do it. I don't know the details of that particular part, but I'll make sure that we do.
It does create a lot of more logs that you're processing, but maybe there's like certain very sensitive systems that you want to monitor. But it is pretty cool. So you can have like a bash script and you can like execute it and it'll say like which network request did it make? Did it like ping these certain IPs? And then it kind of goes back to your loop of like I think you were saying, Eddie, that you have like an incident or something and you want to quickly remediate it. You can get those signals much earlier instead of having to like go back and watch a session recording. You know exactly like, did people run these commands in the session recording? And then you might want to like flag that session recording sooner for viewing. So I think we got 13 minutes left here. I know we have like about 25 people watching. I'd like to open up questions from the audience. So you can just ask questions in the chat or in the Q&A. To kick this off, Hunter or Eddie, do either of you have a question for each other?
Well, I'm interested to hear a little bit more about, you're talking about the eBPF tracing, and how do you use it to be able to capture things? Do you put the things that Ben was talking about, like the triggers to block it real time, or is it more for retroactively going through audits?
No, it is both. So the data warehouse that I was speaking about in my talk, if folks want to go and watch that, it is streaming. So we do it real time. We do it for audits. So the idea being is if we know, like, let's say you're doing something like really sketchy, like, I don't know, doing BitTorrent, via the command line. Well, we'll see that and we'll just immediately, take the server off the network and send someone to go and talk to you. But then from a historical perspective, if there's been a problem, well, we know what commands are run on all these servers. And I will say the nice part about that recording is, especially for bash scripts, while it's great for security, it's also great for operations teams. Because if you have someone push a bash script to a server without testing it and you want to know exactly how the server got in the state of the data when it broke, just pull the log and take a look. So it's a really powerful feature. I'm also one of those folks, like I write my own eBPF programs and drivers, and I am very much going to be like pushing on people to have core enabled in their Linux kernels. So I have your symbol tables too. Like when you get into it, it's so nice to have that level of telemetry and data. It's just anything that you could possibly want running on the Linux system, you can have. It's basically what dtrace gave Solaris, but the difference is that people are using Linux today, and I think it's like Brian Cantrell just keeps taking Solaris forward with like himself and a couple other people.
Cool.
Nice. I have to rewatch your talk again, and I'm interested to hear about how you deal with all of the volume, but I think you did cover this in your talk. We do have I'm going to keep going on with questions. We have one from Dave. Thank you, Dave, for this question. He says, are you doing any work with Spiffy or any other format of workload ID for machine-to-machine communications?
I am doing a lot of stuff with Spiffy right now. I have one wonderful coworker in another team, and we've been batting a lot of cool prototypes back and forth. Generally, I'm going to say I think Spiffy is close. I think Spire needs work to get it to the point of which to where it's necessarily scale enterprise, scale air quotes. But the general concept is really, really cool. And once you get it going with, and again, my background is observability, so I already know how to kind of sort of just write light pieces of malware to make it work seamlessly. You can get some really nice integrations going with the idea that you have the ability to, do this repeated trust. The one thing I will say, if folks want to look at open source, Spire and Spiffy versus Teleport Machine ID, the key section to pay attention to in the manual is the Spire node data plugins. because you can stuff anything you want into Aspire Cert, including things like compliance information, and start to match that stuff downstream too. It is cool. I don't know if I like it more than Machine ID yet. Okay, no, I like them both for different reasons. But I'm hoping, long term we can get to like one industry standard and then really start doing cool stuff with it, because it's, once you get it going, like, it is intoxicating to just automatically secure everything.
Yeah, it's definitely on the journey of zero trust. And then for people who aren't familiar, SPIFFE stands for Secure Production Identity Framework for Everyone. And that's the standard, and Spire is the open source CNCF project, which is like an implementation of SPIFFE. Eddie, are you doing any sort of machine to machine?
We don't do anything with SPIFFE or Spire. We do machine ID with Teleport, and we're primarily using it in our branch-based development. We use Tilt, which is a Docker. Now it's a Docker tool, but we use that for kind of testing branches against our Kubernetes clusters from our builds. And so we have machine IDs that are secured for that repo on a particular cluster. We run that test that way. We also do some of our QA clusters to connect to other clusters for being able to run test suites and stuff like that. It's primarily our efforts to shift things left. We haven't used it in a broader sense, but we are looking to potentially allow for some tools to go in higher environments using machine ID as well.
Great. Thanks for the question, Dave, and thanks for the answer. So any other questions, feel free to use the Q&A. Since we don't have a question, and I'd like to go on what Eddie said about shifting left. I feel like last year, or the last couple of years, lots of people were talking about shifting left, and I feel it's kind of died down a little bit. But what does shifting left mean for your organization, and like where are you currently on this procedure? And I'd say probably some definitions. I think shifting left is generally moving security or practices closer to the workload.
Yeah, whenever I talk about shifting left, I ask people to envision the DevOps infinity symbol, right? And the whole point behind it is not, it's a practice and a principle. It's not necessarily a way of doing things, but the whole point is you reduce that loop between building and getting things out, and then the feedback and communication, right? And it's an infinity because it's never ending. And so shifting left is bringing more things onto the dev side, right? And so you're trying to bring more of the ability to test that you're secure, the ability to test that. So you're getting the feedback for security earlier in the process versus waiting until it goes out to an environment and then somebody does a security scan and somebody comes back and gives you a PDF report, and then you go back to that. And so you can do that with your unit tests, your integration tests, and your security testing, your pen testing. And the more things that you can get earlier in the process for the developers, effectively, I mean, it's the cheaper it is, right? Because if you imagine the testing triangle, right? Unit tests are the cheapest, integration more expensive, and so on and so forth. So if I can move some of my my integration or end-to-end testing left very quickly on a branch in a build before the pull request even happens, that's a few minutes, versus several hours or days. And having the tooling that lets me do that securely and consistently saves us orders of magnitude, worth of whatever you're using, story points or hours or so on. So the more you can do, whether you're scanning and giving a report in the build, or you're able to do a pen test in the build, or deploy a commit out to an environment and see what that looks like, the more you can get it closer to the developer or in your build, the better it is, I feel, for the software development lifecycle.
Yeah, I think that's a great overview. Before I go to Hunter, I'd say my favorite one from our security team was I had a Slack token that I was trying to commit to GitHub, and we set up a pre-check that like it knew before I committed it. Because previously you check it in and then the security team like remove this. It was a whole bunch of people, but now it won't actually let me check in any secrets that match a certain pattern, which I think is a great win. Because one, it made me not look like an idiot, and two, saved the security team, all these tickets and other things to.
Well, think about the time too, because you're going to commit it. Somebody's going to have to scan it. They're going to get back to you. Now you've got it in the history. You're gonna have to remove it or
Like rotate
obviously
it, the source.
revoke it. Yeah, and so hopefully you don't force push anything, but sometimes you have to. So that's a lot of extra time that you've eliminated by shifting left.
Yeah. What about yourself, Hunter?
No, I mean, I think like Eddie, I'm going to have to take the video of this and like time code it for that explanation every time I talk about this, because I think you said it wonderfully. You know, the idea is that you want to take process that is time consuming and expensive, find cheaper and faster variations of it, and then move those cheaper and faster variations up the chain. So that way you get notified sooner rather than later that, hey, once you get to this next hurdle, we know that you're not going to be able to make that jump. And I think, there's a lot of value there. And I'll also say, I think as an industry, we do kind of do ourselves a disservice, because most developers, when I say, well, that shift left as, global SRE lead, it's, you're trying to put me on call, aren't you? And they all, like run for the hills. But no, I really think, the key about shifting left is it's taking responsibility and creating a lightweight version of that responsibility that speeds you up and reduces work overall.
Yeah. So I think we have 3 minutes left. Before we're going to do closing thoughts, we actually have a question, Eddie, from your session earlier, which you might be able to answer, which was, I think this is an easy one, but people were interested where the auth service runs. Is that on every regional hub of your presentation?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. We run an instance of those on every hub. And so all 5 of our regions are full stacks, and they're fully active, and they can cover the other 4.
All right, great. Okay, so I know we've got 3 minutes left before we go about our afternoon. I'd like to thank both Hunter and Eddie for coming here today. I don't know if you have like last closing thoughts. Hunter, you want to go first?
Yeah, I don't know. Thank you for having me again. It's always fun to do these. And I would just say, folks, remember that your SSL certs expire. And if you don't have a calendar of them, you should.
And Eddie?
That's great advice, and absolutely great advice. And again, I have to echo, it's a pleasure being here. I appreciate y'all inviting me over to talk about our journey with Teleport. It's been a very fun journey. It hasn't been entirely, a cakewalk, but no software is. And one of the things that we really love is y'all's ability to respond to those bumps and make a product much better. So for everyone, watching, definitely security needs to be top of mind. Zero trust is a goal. It's not a playbook that you can just go and implement, right? You have to be dedicated and committed, and then go work out all the kinks. But after you get your SSL cert calendar, start working on that.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining. I think it's always awkward to get these time, but in 1 minute and 30 seconds, you'll be automatically moved to the next session. And I'll be around for the end for closing remarks. But thank you again, Hunter and Eddie. We can probably go backstage.
Thank you.